The Brewer brass faced the media on Thursday. Some of these comments, we'll get into some of things that were said. Some you can read into, some you might not be able to. We'll get to all that coming up next on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I always warn people, I've done this in my radio shows and I've done this here on Locked On Brewers. Whenever somebody from the front office or a manager, whatever they start to talk about certain things, 75 to 90 to 99% of the time, take it with a grain of salt. Because these guys are never going to tell you what they are thinking, okay? You're not going to get, most of the time, there's no George Steinbrenner's around. George Steinbrenner, the former Yankee owner, for those of you a little older out there, will know that, he would just rip people. And, he called Dave Winfield Mr. May because he couldn't produce in the postseason, stuff like that. Those kind of guys aren't around anymore. And it's probably a good thing. It's probably a good thing in some sense and a bad thing in another sense. But Brewer GM Matt Arnold talked to the media, Pat Murphy as well, gave some comments, but you can never take whatever these guys say with too much sincerity, okay? Because what they're telling the media and what they tell everybody else, like behind closed doors, two different things. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. This show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. You'll get it started with $200. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, it's been a week now since we've mulled over another first-round exit for the Milwaukee Brewers. And no, I'm still not over it. Matt Arnold, toward the end of the press conference today, talked about the craziness in the postseason. I wish the Brewers were involved in that craziness, quite honestly. I mean, even if it's getting to the NL Divisional Series. We're seeing that craziness with the Detroit Tigers. We're seeing that craziness from the Royals, who ended up getting beat by the Yankees, but they threw some craziness in there. The Mets, certainly. Oh, there we go. Another team that beats the Brewers alive and kicking in the NLCS, awaiting the winner of the Dodgers in San Diego. They're involved in their own craziness in that series. But the Brewers, we just want some craziness here, more than a couple of hours worth of fun. Or in this case, 15 minutes in game 3 of that series. Was it even 15 minutes? So we want some craziness here in Milwaukee. That's what we want. And I do want to, before I comment on what he said today and what Murphy had to say, I do want to say what Pat Murphy said. One of his comments today, he goes, quote, I heard a stupid comment the other day. Someone says the Brewers have got the regular season figured out. Now they got to figure out the playoffs. He goes on to say, that's absurd that you would say that if you really know baseball. We don't have the regular season figured out. It's a grind every freaking year to get to where the Brewers have been. And I've watched it and I felt it. Yeah, we get that. And yeah, I've said that to a certain extent. The Brewers got to figure out the postseason. And I don't think that is a dumb statement because the Brewers have not been able to figure out the postseason. I think whoever says that, like people like me, will say, yeah, we put up these pristine, beautiful regular seasons, and I know it's a grind, and I know it's difficult, and I know it's 6 months, and having never lost 3 in a row, more than 3 in a row during the regular season this year. I get it. It was fun. It was great. But I want to be like, what the Royals are doing. Royals won a series. Okay. The Detroit Tigers went down and beat Houston. I want to be them. Okay. I want more than just a couple of hours of fun of this team in the postseason. Yeah, the Brewers do have the regular season figured out. And for whatever reason, they don't have the postseason figured out. So Pat Murphy's done a great job, but for him to say that's absurd when a fan says, or maybe somebody in the media like me says, well, they've got the regular season figured out. Now they've got to figure out the postseason. And I get it. The regular season, you don't have, the regular season is a grind. I understand that. And you have figured it out. Okay. You've done a great job being the best team in the NL Central, but you haven't been the best team in the postseason. It's a joke every year where we get our hopes up for this team every year, and we get to the postseason, and we're watching the New York Mets celebrating again for a second time in a week in Philadelphia. Yeah, that angers me a little bit. That angers me, especially since I'm coming on here every day and talking about how great this team is. And they had a great regular season, but they didn't validate it in the postseason once again. They didn't validate it in the postseason. So, yeah, they got to figure out how we can get it done in the postseason. And Murph tried to have his pitcher go 4 innings, 5 innings, and turn it over to bullpen. That was his strategy. But they need more offense. The offense could have used more offense. Had to settle for late game heroics in games 2 and 3. The bullpen did let you down in game 1. But yes, it's not absurd to say, well, they figured it out in the regular season, but not in the postseason. Not at all. Not at all absurd, because that's just common sense right there. Look at it. I see, well, it's here with the Brewers again, 93 wins. Where are they out? In 3 days, they're out in the postseason. Watching everybody else. The team that beat them, still alive in the postseason. The New York Mets. And the Mets aren't any better than the Brewers. And the Detroit Tigers aren't any better than the Brewers, or the Cleveland Indians, or Cleveland Guardians, or the Kansas City Royals, who got beat by the Yankees. But they were there. They were there playing in the divisional series. The Royals won their first round game. So I want to get to at least in the divisional series. That's not too much to ask for. You win 93 games. That's not too much to ask for. So it's not absurd, with all due respect to manager Pat Murphy. Matt Arnold says they're processing the whole season and all that and get eliminated. And they're holding meetings on Thursday and seeing what they're going to do going forward. It sounds like Tobias Myers going to be in the rotation for 2025. And I get that. Easy question. Of course, Tobias Myers is going to be in the rotation. He's not making any money. Of course, he had a great year. Well, what else are you going to do? Thank God you got Tobias Myers on the cheap here, and he's going to be in your rotation next year, because that's what the Brewers have to do. They have to get cheap starting pitching, because they're not paying for pitching, starters or relievers. They're not paying for it. So, yeah, Tobias Myers, to say he's in the starting rotation, that's a given. I didn't think there was any question about that. Ashby, talked about Ashby and DL Hall, both candidates for the rotation coming up next year. And again, both cheap candidates and both good pitchers. We saw out of both of those guys, Ashby and Hall. I like what both of those guys did toward the end of the season. Yeah, Hall had a couple of blow-ups, and Ashby did too. That playoff game, Ashby in game 1 did not pitch great, but a lot to like of him in the regular season. Both guys cheap, on the cheap, obviously. And, well, Ashby did sign that contract a couple of years ago, but relatively speaking, they got him locked up relatively for peanuts, and same with DL Hall. As far as who is going to play shortstop next year, well, Matt Arnold gave us the word salad about Willy Adames that, we'd love to have back and all that. Come on. We know that Willy Adames is not coming back. Now, I do hope they give him a qualifying offer, though. The qualifying offer would be about $21 million. So you got to give him at least a qualifying offer. Of course, Adames is not going to take it. He's looking for a multi-year deal. So you give him the qualifying offer. He doesn't take it. He signs with somebody else, probably Boston or the Dodgers or somebody else, and you'll get a draft pick out of it. But I think that they at least know they have to give him the qualifying offer, so you get that draft pick. They've done it with other guys in the past, and they'll do it with him too. But who's going to play shortstop? Sounds like right now they're not committing to anybody at shortstop. And of course, like I said, goes back to what I said earlier. They're not going to tell us what they're going to do. Maybe they make a trade for a shortstop. I talked about signing Bergman in the offseason if he becomes a free agent, but maybe they keep Ortiz at third base and sign somebody else or trade for somebody else who's going to be a shortstop. We can't automatically assume that Ortiz is going to move to short or Terang is going to move to short. That's wide open right now. I would think that Ortiz would play shortstop, but it could be that maybe they trade for a shortstop who's maybe at the tail end of arbitration. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. But yeah, they didn't commit to anybody for shortstop. But, I mean, we just assume that Ortiz is going to be the guy. I would think he's going to be the guy ahead of Turang. Or who knows? Maybe they move Turang over to short and they get themselves a second baseman. That could be the case. But I think the way to go is, like I said the other day, get yourself a power-hitting third baseman. You need some power over at third base. I'm okay with Ortiz playing short, but we'll see what they do in the offseason. Of course, right when the World Series ends, this is when everything hits the fan. We'll know who's in free agency. We'll know who the qualifying offers are a little bit later on in November. There's a lot of things. November is going to be a busy month, a very busy month, as it always is. They have the general managers meetings. They have them, everything. You know, those general manager meetings they have in Scottsdale, Arizona. They have a lot of things going on. Somebody asked Arnold about Frelick moving to third base. Would they trade Sal Frelick in the offseason? I mean, nobody asked about that. And of course, we're not going to get a true answer on that anyway, but I'd like to see them do a little bit better than Sal Frelick over at third base. If he's coming back on the team, which I think he is, and he's not going to get traded, I'm just throwing that out there. I would think he's my right fielder. Frelick is my right fielder. But I don't want him to play third. I want to have a better option at third base. I'll take Frelick at right. Let's do a better option at third base. Or I guess if you found yourself a power hitting right fielder, I want some more production out of that right field spot too. If you move Frelick to third, but Ortiz over there. I mean, I can't stress enough why the defense on this team with Ortiz did give them at third. So I'm willing to sacrifice a little defense over at third for a guy who's going to give me some pop. But that pop isn't Frelick, although he jacked one in the postseason there, but that was his first home run since May. So Frelick, that experiment hasn't ended, but there's a lot of time between now and spring training. Murphy did say Yelich is not moving to first base. He's an outfielder. He still feels Yelich has plenty left in the tank, and I hope so because he's under contract for a few years. We'll see where he goes with the back, but the talk was in the offseason last year about Murphy moving to Yelich to third base. It's not happening. They talked about the Miz today, Contreras, and a few other things. We'll get to that coming up next here. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You get our podcast, by the way, on Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. That's where you get Locked On Brewers. We're the number one Brewers podcast on the internet because you great Brewer fans out there. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. And, you can do that on the audio platforms as well. Subscribe. All the content is free. And our growing YouTube page, please subscribe. And we're going to be here all winter, all fall, all winter. There's news. There's going to be the Brewers. This isn't like 1978 where the season ended and there was no news. There's going to be news every week with the Milwaukee Brewers. There's a lot of stuff to talk about in the offseason. A whole lot of things we're going to get to. So anyway, Prize Picks. What is Prize Picks? It's the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players, maybe up to 6 as well, and you can win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Again, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get in all the action on sports in over 30 states, California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. They put their members first at Prize Picks. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. You want to know when you get your cash, when you win your cash, can I get my money? Prize Picks, I can tell you, very, very secure. And when your Prize Picks hits, you get your money as quick as 15 minutes. So here's what you need to do. Download the app today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB. You'll get $50 instantly when you play your $5 lineup. So you can get the $50 instantly when you play your $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Prize Picks run your game, but take advantage of the $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. The Brewers haven't decided about Jacob Mizorowski, the Miz, as we call him, what they're going to do with him. Arnold talked about the upside that the Miz has got. His arm, one of the best arms in the organization. There's no doubt about it, if not the best. But they haven't decided if he's going to be a bullpen or starter next year. I would imagine he's going to be on the team. And there's not much, a heck of a lot more for him to do down the minor leagues, is there? I mean, guy's throwing 100 miles an hour. Get him up on this team. Get him up on the roster. And I would think Mizorowski is going to be working on the bullpen. I would see something like how they done with Corbin Burns and other guys like that, Josh Hader, pitching out of the bullpen in middle relief. Could get bumped up a little higher than that too, like an eighth inning guy if he does well, and they trade Devin Williams in the offseason. Said they got to stay open-minded about Devin. That's what he said, stay open-minded. We're going to stay open-minded about Devin Williams. And and he didn't come out and say, yeah, Devin's coming back and be our closer. They're going to be open-minded. They understand where they are. $10 million offer they're about to give him through arbitration. And that'll be it. And we'll see if they trade him as he goes into his final year under arbitration. Also talked about Abner Uribe. This guy we forget about, Abner Uribe. I mean, this is a guy who I thought was going to be an integral part of this bullpen. Had knee surgery during the season, and hardly any Uribe news. Obviously, he's got his control issues, throwing the ball over the plate. But another guy who throws 100. When a guy throws 100, he's in your system for sure, and hopefully part of your future plans. But they did say Uribe, the knee surgery is coming along fine. He'll be 100% come spring training. Contreras, of course, he had the knee brace on game 3 last Thursday, and they did say, Arnold did say he had a mild knee sprain, nothing that needs to get cleaned up, no surgery or anything like that, but he had a mild knee sprain. He still wanted to be in the lineup, but you got to keep him in the lineup. Mild knee sprain, Contreras. That's why in game 3, he was supposed to start behind the plate. They put, they put him at the DH spot. They put up him in the DH spot and put Gary Sanchez to the catcher spot. I mean, that signaled right away that there was an injury. When Contreras was jogging in the outfield before the game, was something he never does. That signaled there was something going on there. So Contreras, mild knee sprain, plenty of time to heal that up. Brewer Fanatic took a poll. Twitter site, Brewer Fanatic, great site. 60% of the Brewers fans out there, 60% want Brewer fans out there to go out and get themselves Alex Bergman. I think that's the logical. I think that's number one thing on the Brewers wall. Nobody's going to ask him today, Murphy or Arnold. No one's going to say, hey, should you go after Bergman? He's not even a free agent yet. And he would tell us anyway. Those are behind the closed doors things. All right. Jesse Winker. It seems like the guy's been in the news a lot. People in the state are having a little fun with him, including a local college. Talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. Hey, maybe you're thinking about going out of town, watching the World Series, maybe going to a Super Bowl, Final Four, or whatever. This show is brought to you in part by Booking.com. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today at Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Booking.com, if you're going to go to a sporting event or whatever, go to Booking.com to help you with hotels, vacation rentals, resorts, all that. It's all there. Maybe you want to go see spring training next year. I'll tell you that. Booking.com is great for getting all your reservations all set and ready to go. It's really easy to do. The right stake can make you a fan of any U.S. city. And I'll tell you, if you're a baseball fan, going down to spring training, it is fun. You get, especially if you live in Wisconsin, you get away from this horrible weather down there. You go out there, and it's night and day, literally. You leave here in 20-degree temperatures, you go out there in the 80-degree, watching some baseball in a relaxed atmosphere. Get it all done through Booking.com. Hotels, resorts, golf resorts, it's all there. The right stay, again, can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. And FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you actually place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you play you first $5 bet. Whether you win it or you lose it, all you got to do is place it, and they're going to give you in your account $200 in bonus bets. Great site to maneuver around. Live betting. Again, they have the stats right there, the live play-by-play, all very easy to use. Get the FanDuel.com, and take advantage of the bonus bets. $200 in bonus bets when you play your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com, FanDuel.com. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Down the stretch we come. A couple of tidbits here that we haven't touched upon yet. By the way, that Brewers documentary, I saw it ended on Thursday in cities around the state. I believe there's going to be a DVD coming out. They still do make DVDs, I think. You know, that's dating me a little bit. I still think I know they don't make VHSs. I don't have one of those anymore. I think I have one that's messed up down in the basement somewhere. But DVDs, the Brewers documentary they made. After the Brewers, I'll be honest, after the Brewers got beat by the Mets, I was planning on going to see it last weekend, but man, I didn't want to see any Brewers documentary after that loss. I didn't want to see highlights of the Brewers. I didn't want to see anything visual of highlights in another sad ending. I didn't want to see another sad ending to a beautiful story. And that's what I would have seen if I would have went to that documentary last weekend. But I do want to see it, and I am going to see it. It's a great thing. I told you, when I saw the trailer for it, I got a few tears in my eyes. It's a great documentary, amazing reviews. I just didn't see it. And like I said, I probably should have seen it before the Brewers got eliminated. But time will heal things on that for me. Jesse Winker, UWM, they always have some crafty ways to market their sports teams, their basketball, their men's and women's basketball teams, offering $1.99 tickets. Jesse Winker, the Jesse Winker special, the $1.99 to commemorate his $1.99 batting average. Jesse says he hates Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee. We love Milwaukee, and we love the Milwaukee Brewers. So UWM, $1.99 basketball tickets. I think it's for the men's and women's opener. Go check them out on Twitter. Commemorating Jesse Winker's batting average. Wow. $1.99. Jesse. Somebody asked me, are you rooting for the Mets? A buddy of mine is a Mets fan. With all due respect. Yeah, it's funny. I only cheer for my team at all, but Jesse Winker kind of made me disliked the Mets a little bit. I don't want to see him have any success, especially a guy who I went to bat for when he came here last year. But the Mets are still alive. How about that? Knock it off the Phillies. Who didn't see that coming? My pick, I think the Mets are going to win the World Series. The Mets are just going to keep rolling. I think they're going to keep rolling. And whether they play San Diego or LA, I think the Mets are going to win that series. Like 1983 NC State in the NCAA tournament just kept on rolling, won the ACC tournament, just kept on playing and playing and playing and winning and winning and winning. And we've seen teams do that before, come from a low seed, come from desperation and get in. And there's no pressure on those guys whatsoever. But I wish it was us. I wish it was us. All right, everybody. Thank you once again, all you everydayers Locked On Brewers, Google, Spotify, Apple, wherever you download your podcast. Thank you very much for making Locked On Brewers the number one podcast on the internet. Please always hit the subscribe button wherever you download your podcast. And if you download the audio podcast, please hit us up on YouTube as well. Subscribe to us on YouTube. All you got to do is hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. We'll be your daily talking Brewers baseball here for the next couple of months. There's a lot of news to be happening, as I mentioned earlier, with the Milwaukee Brewers, and we'll have it all covered here on Locked On Brewers. It's going to do it for me. For your next listen, go to Locked On MLB. My guy Sully has got all the postseason news and notes and assessment and analysis. Locked On MLB. That's your second listen. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. My name is Chuck Freeman. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody.